talked about this so much via cell phone call, like older guys, where we communicate and talk healthcare and hip replacements and knee replacements, that kind of stuff. So we're boots on the ground, skates on the ice, knowledge of both systems. I lived under Quebec Medicare, and at the time it was fine. 1960s and 70s, it was fine because it was doing, at least in my perspective, what it was meant to do. But then here we go. The only thing my message here, and I covered this a lot in my book, is there's difference between coverage and care.
Oh,
and this is the big branding. It's brainwashing. Okay, I mean it is. But coverage, Canadian Universal Health coverage. We got our Medicare. We've got our, remember OHIP in Ontario. And there's a warm and fuzzy feeling to that. And I don't care what anyone says. It is a branding thing. It's an impression that people carry with them. And the truth is, you can have any coverage you want. The policy can list what's covered, but can you get the bloody care? Yeah. Can you get an MRI in 24 hours? You know, I was less than a week out on a hip replacement, had world-class care. Can you deliver the care? X-ray on the spot, no appointment. Hello? Yeah. And I've always joked, I don't care. I just can't believe how little Canadians know about the U.S. system and how little Americans know about the Canadian system. Because the answer, no matter what, is for world-class care, timely, no waiting periods, be a U.S. state, Alberta, and devise your own healthcare. Build it into the state constitution. That's the only thing I'll say on that. But there you go, Gordon.
Well, it's really interesting. You talk about how it was in the early 60s when they had Quebec healthcare. But, we in Alberta, we had what we called MSI, medical. It was a medical insurance, but it was privatized. It was owned. The doctors were the ones that were the backbone to MSI, Medical Services Incorporated, it was called. And it was a private insurance policy that you could get. And it was put together through the medical practice people like doctors and so forth. So I remember we're talking about my dad and the impression that he had on me and, the things he taught me. I remember, I think I was about 19 or so when MSI came out, maybe 20. And I went home and I was talking to my dad and he said, well, we're in trouble. And I said, why? He said, they're going to take MSI away from us. And he said, they're going to have government insurance, government health care. I said, well, why? It's not going to change. They keep telling us that's not going to change. He said, they're lying. He said, when the government gets involved in anything, he said, it always changes. I said, well, the premiums are going to stay the same. He said, yeah, for about a year. And then he said, watch what's will happen to them premiums. He said, once the government gets involved, he said, those premiums will skyrocket. And he said, they might not charge you premiums, but he said, we're going to pay dearly through taxes. And you remember my words. So he's a pretty sharp guy,